all-star. So here we go. Super excited to introduce this couple to you, Nick and Kelly Couch. So let's go ahead and kick off this portion of our hacking, our success profiles, I guess you would call it, because Nick and Kelly will definitely be able to give you some incredible hacks and takeaways as they have now built their business now over the past, I don't know if it's been 2 years yet, but pretty close, which is exciting. So without further ado, we've got our Circle of Champion 100K champs, Nicholas and Kelly Couch. How are you all doing? And don't answer until I unmute. All right, there we go.
You're doing awesome.
Awesome, beautiful. So, Nick and Kelly, how long has it been since you guys have taken on the Prüvit conversation?
We're a few days away from whenever I joined Prüvit.
I was gonna say longer for Nick.
Awesome. So you're getting close to that mark. So real quick, why don't you give everyone a quick update on your background? So where you're from, what your previous backgrounds, I guess, for you two were, and just give us a little bit about yourself.
So I was born and raised in Pennsylvania, currently reside in the Harrisburg, South Central area. My prior background was blue-collar trade. I was born around working with your hands, fixing things, stuff like that, and it just naturally led me to being an electrician. Went through my schooling, became a master electrician, was promoted to superintendent, was managing crew sizes up to 40 electricians on multi-million-dollar projects, and I ran projects for about 4 years, and then I wouldn't say I was necessarily looking to get out of the trade whenever this all happened. I was more looking for some side money, some extra money, an extra car payment, an extra mortgage payment, things like that. And it quickly changed. But my background is blue-collar construction trades. I've always worked with my hands.
My background, Nick and I actually went to high school together. He's a couple years younger than I am. But I went to Bloomsburg for political science. Do not major in political science, even if you're going to law school. And then I went to law school here at Dickinson in Carlisle. And now I practiced for a few years, and then we started to have children. We have 3 little kids. They're 5, 4, and 2. And now I always wondered how that was going to work, going back to being an attorney after taking 11 years off. I mean, if any job, it's hard to go back to, but with the law, things are changing constantly. And now I don't think I'm going to go back.
But yeah, polar opposites, blue collar, white collar, just hands-on, book smart. I mean, it's definitely a unique dynamic in the relationship, and it plays a big role in the business aspect also, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, and what's awesome is, Nick and Kelly are personal to myself. Not only I say that indirectly from a business standpoint, but we all went to high school together. Nick and I were actually in the same class, and I wasn't around when Kelly was robbing that cradle, but she had some friends that were we were all interconnected in some way, shape, or form. And at that time, probably when I was younger, I may probably spent more time with Kelly's friends than I did Nick's, and it was just crazy. So this couple's a little closer to my heart than most, just because we grew up same town, same place, and it's just awesome to see. Because as you start to go out into different parts, maybe where you grew up, it's awesome to see it validated from someone else. Because sometimes it's hard to individuals that you've known your entire life. Unfortunately, they get a chance to judge you based on your worst times than maybe your best. So with all that being said, let's quickly get to how did this entire journey start for you? Because obviously, I don't think either of you had any intention after being introduced to the ketone conversation to, hey, is there another option outside of practicing law or, managing individuals that, I mean, Nick, you were literally leading crews of individuals that were 2 and 3 times your age. So you had a very good living. You both did. How did this all start? How were you introduced to ketones, and how did your experience with ketones lead to where you're at today?
So I'd like to say that Kelly and I have always had a little entrepreneurial spirit. We actually looked into a franchise. We started our own electrical corporation. We ended up closing that just because the time invested versus the money returned just wasn't justifiable. I mean, the money invested in the tools to do the work, the truck to haul the parts, and the time spent wearing all the hats, being the bookkeeper, being the estimator, being the guy that was installing the lights and fixing the problems and getting calls in the middle of the night because somebody's dryer didn't work or whatever. I mean, I was investing a lot of time for little reward. So after doing that for probably 8 to 10 months successfully, looking back, we were like, man, we're newlywed. Like, we're going to get to hang out because I'm constantly working all day, working all night, and it just wasn't justifiable for that brick and mortar style business. So we ended up hanging that up, and that spirit always burned a little bit, but I grew up, you're going to get a good job, work, and retire, and that's just kind of the footsteps we were heading in. And I'll never forget it. I can't quite pull the date out, but February 2015, I come home from work. I think you just moved to Alaska, and Kelly's like, hey, there's a box on the counter from Brian James. I'm like, what the heck did he send me? And I cut it open, and out comes a 1-gallon Ziploc bag half full of white powder.
And we were still like, what the heck did Brian do?
I know you're an ethical dude, but I was like, what is this? And then there was an envelope with these little like litmus strips, urine strips. And I called you up, and I was like, dude, what is this? And I'll never forget, you were like all fired up. You're like, oh, ketones, ketosis. Yeah, I mean, you were talking a mile a minute. I had no idea what you were talking about. You had convinced me to drink it against her agreeing. She's a lawyer. She's like, you're not drinking some random stuff in a bag.
And he worked on elementary school, so he got drug tested frequently. So I was like, it's a bag of white powder. I mean, this is like evidence sitting in our house.
So me being my personality, I snuck it every day to work for 8 days, but I didn't understand the urine testing, so I threw the strips in the trash. I was like, why does he want me to pee on a stick? This makes no sense. So I felt good. I called you on day 8 when I ran out, and I was like, hey, can I get some more? You're like, there is no more. I was like, what do you mean there's no more? You're like, that was like our first little sample test run. I was like, well, dude, I'm not looking for any products. I'm not looking for anything. I'm good. Life's good. We're pregnant with our 3rd child. I was like, let me know if something changes down the road. So I just kind of sat back and was one of those Facebook stalkers. I watched your journey for 7 months till the company launched. And it was complete chaos. I mean, I remember you guys would sell out, and then there'd be these little flash sales. Once we sell this much, the website shut down, and people were going crazy. And I was watching all of this like, man, this is pretty interesting stuff. We just had our 3rd child in August. And then over that next 2-month period from September when the company started to November, when we actually crawled into bed one night, I gained almost 30 pounds. Due to eating ice cream and a bunch of other stuff I wouldn't normally eat there towards the tail end of her pregnancy, I was just miserable. I was sitting on the steps in the morning to tie my work boots, and my gut was getting in the way. And I remember messaging you in bed one night. I was like, dude, I need to try this stuff. And you were like, all right, let's do it. And Kelly's like, we're not doing it. I was like, babe, just let me try. She's like, all right, you can try it, but just keep it at work. I don't want to see it. I don't want to talk about it, whatever. So I was drinking the keto at work, and I jumped in with both feet like I always do. And it was kind of a slow go, but it took Kelly a little bit to get over the hump of even just consuming the product. And then it all changed from there.
So Kelly, what was it? And feel free if you have to throw me under the bus in order to get get it out of you here. Because first thing, you were probably like, Nick, don't take that stuff. I've been at high school parties with Brian before. Just don't take it, okay? Don't take it. No. But in all seriousness, Kelly, why were you so against, and like I said, just whatever that is, why were you so against it? Like, why were you so dead set against any of it? I don't even know if you know what it was, but why?
Well, we had tried so much. I mean, it wasn't even, I'll get to that, but I mean, we had tried so much, and when we didn't have kids, it was different. Like, you can go out and you had to. We spent so much time doing our electrical company and then the other company with you down in Philly. You literally get off work and drive down there and fine, that was fine. But at this point, we had 3 little kids. We had, our third one was about to be born, and we had done another, I think it was MLM PTSD. I mean, you hear people talk about it. I personally was so burnt out from doing that and spending money head over heels. And it was like, when he brought up your name, I mean, I was like, I hate to say this, I love you, but I hate to say this. When he brought up your name, I would have like anxiety. So like moms, like when you have the kids in bed and you like go to like lay down and like take action or spend time with your husband, I would have anxiety for that time because Nick is a nag when he wants something, right? And I knew as soon as I laid down, he'd be like, so what do you want me to tell Brian? I'm like, I just want you to stop talking about him. Like I think he's great, but like I was not ready. I didn't even know what the product was. But I couldn't jump right back in. And then he started taking it and he's like, I feel great. But you guys know Nick, he always feels great. So I wasn't super convinced. And then I was like the worst. I was like the worst spouse, the worst promoter. I gave him like 4 months. I remember saying that, like, you have 4 months to make this profitable and then it's done. And I don't want to talk about it. I want you to drink it at work. I was awful. I was like, I try to be super supportive, but I was not in this venture supportive one bit.
And she's right. I find different ways to ask the same question till I get the answer that I want. And literally, like, every night we get in bed, I'd be like, so, like, I haven't responded to Brian James yet. Or, like, hey, what about that stuff? Like, I just keep asking the same question till I get the answer that I want. And it's funny, but.
Like, did you research ketosis? No. I was changing diapers all day. I did not research ketosis.
Did you read that article?
So, Nick, how was the next couple months for you doing it without, I guess kind of doing this thing from a distance, if you will, from Kelly? How did that period of time go? And then let's kind of get to the point where maybe that shift took place.
Yeah, so she gave me a 4-month drop dead. Like, this thing needs to be making profit in 4 months or we're done. So we're quickly approaching the 4-month mark. And I'm like, oh, shit, we haven't made any money. So Allie and Milton were having an event down in Fredericksburg. And then right after that, they were having an event where Brian Underwood was coming to town and a bunch of other Circle of Champions and people were coming together.
Not only had we not made money, he gave away all of his product for free.
Yeah.
So we didn't make money and we had given
We
all
lost money.
Hold on, we talk all the time. We talk all the time about, the Go Challenge and how important it is to really make that a focus, especially getting momentum right out of the gate. Did you guys hit Go Pro?
No.
Did you hit Go MVP?
No.
Well,
Did you hit Go All-Star?
I'm the detail person, and so Nick didn't even know about it.
I
wasn't in during that 4 months, and Nick didn't even. I don't think
I was too busy.
Yeah.
I was too busy just sharing packs of keto to all my friends. I didn't even know what the Go Challenge was. I don't even think it was called that then. It wasn't an experience pack. It was called a share pack, and a lot's changed. But yeah.
When we started bringing on promoters, we were like, they were asking all these questions, and we were like, we're just gonna have to learn together. I'm sorry, we're gonna learn, but we're gonna do it together.
We made lots of mistakes, yeah. But also my nickname, as most of you know, Brian calls me Massive Action Couch. From the day that first can arrived in November to February, I was working just as hard as I am now, just not as smart as I am now. And literally it was 0 results. And like Kelly said, I was giving away 3, 4, 5 day experience packs, but we didn't call it that. I was just like, here, try it for a couple days, And it was exhausting because people weren't even drinking it. It's like, man, I gave you all that stuff. Could you just drink it and let me know what you think? And then we were approaching that 4-month mark. I knew I needed to get to the first event in Fredericksburg, and then I could talk my way into the second event because Kelly said you can go to 1. And so I knew just get to the first one. We'll figure out the second one. And then there was the first event in Las Vegas, which I wanted to get to also. And I knew I just needed to get to one, then I could figure out the next, and I could figure out the next, so I could nag. And I got to Fredericksburg, and I'll never forget, I learned more about the business because that's not my personality. So I just got around the fire, the proximity, the association. I got to meet a bunch of people that were having success. Came back and applied some of those things. And in February 2016, we had hit $100 in volume. I earned $20, and I'll never forget it. The day that $20 loaded into our account, I took a screenshot and I sent it to you. I was like, dude, I just made $20. You're like, great. If you can make $20, you can make 20 grand. And that was the end of the conversation. So we still weren't profitable, but I was trying to get
I think
her.
I was the customer.
Yeah, I don't remember.
Pretty sure.
I don't know. But yeah, so that was like our first month of doing anything, and it was all vertical from there, because for those 4 months of doing work with no results, I was sowing seed, sowing, and then finally we started reaping, because it literally went vertical from there.
So Kelly, what was it? Because you had said before, I'm not doing anything. I'm not going into anything. I'm not, like, just straight up, I'm not. So what compelled you to go to that very first event, and maybe what happened at that first event that allowed you to go to the second? Or how did that, I guess, walk us through that. How did that
I
go?
went to the first by myself. Then I talked her into coming to the second one.
He's saying like San Diego.
Yeah.
So after I had my third kid, that's when he started really drinking it. And, you know, like a lot of your moms, like, you don't feel good. I was overweight, and Nick was talking about this every single day, you know, even though I told him not to. No. And I just wasn't myself. Like I had no energy. I thought I had no time. You know, I was off. So I wanted to try it, but I didn't want Nick to know I was trying it, because then I knew he would try to like force me into the business, and I wasn't ready for that at all. I just wanted to like try it on my own, have my own experience. So I was ordering it off a third-party site, and then he found it. But I
found
was
a
like,
pack in the trash can. I'm like, where'd this come from? She's like, ugh.
So not only was I like the worst wife and worst promoter or person, I was drinking this. I didn't reach out for help. I was like nauseated and sweaty, and I had a headache, and I was like, where was that? But I was like, well, I got to keep drinking and ball all this, you know. So then it turned around. Obviously, I started feeling really great. So then Nick found it, and then we were like, hey, so he brings up these things. So they're called Spark 2 San Diego, right? Like, I went to law school. I think I'm pretty smart, right? Spark 2 means it's leading into, right? I get that. So I was like, you get one event. So we went down with Matt Comfort, and they had a great time. You know, they're both social people. So I was like, okay, it's in Virginia. I can bring the kids. So we went down there, and they were just wonderful. I mean, Nick is super raw. Like, that stuff gets him pumped. He loves all of that. So I'm like, all right, I'll sit through this for like one time and make him happy. But we got down there, and they were just so amazing and welcoming. And it was like the experience that I had everyone was having, and they didn't even get mad. So we were so new. We had no clue. Like, the only probably keto dish we had made was this heavy breakfast casserole. It was literally heavy, and I was like, we're dying. Like, I don't even know what we're eating. This is gonna kill us. But Nick would eat it every day. And so we made these like fat bombs. I'm just telling you how nice they were. We were like, you know, cookies, like peanut butter cookies, when you roll them, they stay in a ball. These fat bombs, they literally got so sticky. Melting. And like Brian Underwood was there, and Tony Freeman. Everyone's walking around with our fat bombs, like looking. I was so mortified. I was like, I can't. But they were so nice, and they were like, they're so good. And I was like, oh, get me out of here, right? But anyhow, we heard Brian Underwood talk, and he just, like, I remember the one thing he said. We always laugh about this, but he was like saying, you know, and at that point I was home with the kids, and you know, you get in your mind, like, I was an attorney and I accomplished all this stuff, but you're home with the kids, and I was made for that. I was made to be a mom. I know that. I always wanted that, but you know, it's like, am I never going to practice law again? Like, for me personally, it was like, what am I going to do now? Like, what do I do for me now, you know? And we got there, and he was talking about how people are so afraid to step out of their box. And that was me, you know, I'm here like, he's talking like at me. We're in the front row, you know, Nick sits front and center. I'm like, so awkward. And then he was like, you know, don't think of it as stepping out of your box. Think of it as stepping into your light. And I was like, that's me, I'm stepping into my light. And then from there, you know, just hearing everyone talk, and they invited us back. I mean, they were so nice, you know, in our other company, like, people were so, it wasn't that way. It wasn't super helpful, and they just welcomed us in and said whatever we needed. You know, they weren't earning a dime off of us, but they were just the sweetest people. And so then came time for San Diego, Spark 2 San Diego. And Nick's like, we got to go. I mean, he thought because I smiled once, that means I'm going to San Diego, right? So we like had no money. We made $20 and it was mine. So I paid for the $20. They just gave me $20 off, right? So it was like $2,500, I think, for our flight out there.
Flights, tickets,
and
everything.
Then on the way out, our credit card got stolen in the airport. And so we landed and the credit card's calling and they were like, someone processed $1,800 in 30 seconds. So this card shut down. So the card we were going to use there shut down. I'm like, wow, welcome to San Diego. We're moving here clearly because we can't afford to get back. So then we get there and we're in and it was amazing. I mean, the people that like, they were in Virginia, the whole community was just like that. And it was really I mean, as against it as I was, it wasn't rah at all. It was a lot of personal development. It was just what I needed to confirm, like, okay, Nick can either grow on his own or we can grow together and do this together. And so I remember I messaged Brian Underwood after it was over, like, I'm gonna get emotional, but like, thank you for this. I needed this. I was so against it, but it was good. It was what I needed. And then at the end, well, right before the end, before I had come over my shock from this, but that's when they put up these experience packs. So we're out all this money, our credit card gets stolen. Nick's like, Nick, like, what's my experience pack? I'm like, with what, right? And so he's like, let me ask Brian what he thinks. I'm like, of course Brian's gonna say to buy it, right? Of course. So we bought that, and then, it's history from there. We just started, we were like panicking that we'd spent all this money, but desperate times, you do what you gotta do. And so we just ran from there, and it's been amazing.
Yeah, I'll never forget. I snuck to the back of the room. I was like, Brian, I know we need this experience pack, but Kelly's not for it. What should we do? You're like, are you going to build this thing on a shoestring budget, or are you all in? I was like, I'm all in. Let's go. So, but that really forced us to.
Now, what happened in that period of time? Because obviously you were taking massive action. You really had no transferable skills coming into this. Nick, it was just basically you all by yourself. Kelly had just started taking the product. She came to her very first event. Coming out of that event, she was hesitant to invest to go to the whole way across the country, right? So she's finally just now coming on board with the challenge to really invest into this conversation, really invest into her, into you guys' business. The key is when you made that decision to stop being 1 foot in and 1 foot out, or, hey, let's get out of the mindset of spending versus investing. What happened to that? Number one, what happened to that experience pack before you landed back in Pennsylvania from your flight from San Diego? And then what proceeded to happen? And what was it, the next 30 days? Just real quick, walk us through that.
So obviously we spent literally our last $1,000 we had in our names to get the experience pack before we flew home. Well, we didn't even have the product. We had to wait for it to be shipped. And it was just out of a place of fear. Like we had to work our rear ends off. So we flew on 2 separate planes home, and we both had Wi-Fi. So literally it became a competition who could move more 5-day experiences. And we kind of started tailoring the wording, and we kind of created our own little way of doing it. But literally, like, I would get somebody like, yeah, I'll try a 5-day. And I'd message Kelly a screenshot, and she'd get one and she'd screenshot me. And we were just going back and forth competitively the whole flight back to Baltimore, Maryland. And literally before the wheels touched the East Coast, all 200 servings plus some were sold. So we had sold that whole first thing. And we weren't like, oh, we got to wait till we get another one. We kept selling them. We kept moving 5 days. We kept moving 5 days and just pre-ordering and pre-registering and keeping a list. And it got to the point, once the product started showing up at our house, I would come home from work from my electrical job, and Kelly'd have a box with, like, almost like the mailman. Like, she had the addresses, the name, and then the sequence of my route to deliver them at night. And there for a stretch of time, I mean, I would be out. It was funny looking back now, seeing my time hops or my memories, because I see, like, I was out at 12:40 in the morning in a parking lot delivering a 5-day. And it literally just became, like, such a drive and hustle. Like, it almost became an addiction to, like, just helping other people in that time period. So the first 14 weeks of volume, so from that first purchase of Kelly's, 14 weeks, we did $21,100 in volume. We went to that event in San Diego, May 13th.
14 days or 14 weeks?
14 weeks, 21,000 in volume. We went to San Diego. We learned the experience packs. The 5 days, we bought an experience pack. Over the next 6 weeks, we did a separate 55,000 in volume, which took us rank 6 in June of 2016. So literally, we came back to that event in 40 days. We went rank 6.
Now, most people don't know this, but that San Diego event was the actual birth of our 5 and 10 day system. And Nick and Kelly Couch were one of the couples that truly validated that system. And let me be very clear about this. They were the ones that really validated this system and laid the foundation for it. Here's the reason I say that, because from the time Nick and Kelly were going rank 6 Circle of Champions in that next period of whatever Nick just said, 6 weeks, I still wasn't bought into it. I still was giving away 5 and 10 day experiences. Do you know how I learned the 5 and 10 day experience? From Nick and Kelly. Why? Because Olivia called Kelly one night. She said, "Hey, are you doing it? Brian said not to do that. Why are you doing it?" Like it was like a little Bash Brian session on, how to do a 5 and 10 day experience. So it was this couple that really, truly brought it to life for me and made it work. So it's incredible. So for those of you who don't know, they've stuck to that play and have taken themselves. Now I want you to speed this up because we got about 10 minutes left in this interview. What happened from that period of time that you caught that momentum, just literally running the play that works? Before that, we didn't really title it the play that works. It was whatever the hell works, let's do it. So at that period of time, you guys were just asking the question, getting out the video, getting out a 5 or 10 day, and literally replicating that with every single person. Like that was your directive, right? It's, hey, that's all you have to do. If you want to do this too, you do the 5 or 10 day experience as well.
Great.
What happened in that next calendar year? What happened in that next calendar year that then gave you some other options, Nick? Because I think that it was the end of that year that you made some pretty big life decisions.
Yes. Yeah. So in June, we had our first month of Circle of Champions, and it was literally month after month after month. It was a steady climb to 7. And then we had a setback in our personal life. I had a traumatic brain injury in September of 2016, 15 months ago. I had suffered a traumatic brain injury and I was hospitalized. I was in surgical intensive care. So that was the first month of our vertical climb that we had set back just because we weren't involved with our team. We weren't there building. And then literally as soon as I could get my fingers on my phone, we were back in action mode. And the next month it just popped. And then we just kept keeping it simple. And it's cool looking back now.
Nick, real quick, Kelly, was that period of time, was that a scary time for you and your family?
Yeah. Really scary. I mean, it was scary for him, but it was also scary, so this is Nick, right? Like he had his disability form to turn in at work, but he didn't. So we were without pay during that time too from his job. And that was our income, Prüvit, but yeah, super scary.
If we wouldn't have built the prior months prior to that head injury, literally we probably would have lost our house and our car. I mean, without having a paycheck for those 6 weeks that I was out for being injured, I didn't get a paycheck. I mean, I was salary when it benefited the company, but when it was my turn for them to take one for the team, sorry, you're not getting paid for 6 weeks. So if it would have been for that income.
So if the same situation would have happened at your job that you were working at and you didn't have Prüvit in place, would it have played out differently in terms of what was, what was available to you to help?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, if it wasn't for the income that we had generated and had coming in, we would have been screwed. We would have been up shit creek without a paddle.
And I think going through that, looking back, I would never say I would want it to happen again. Surely not. But, I think it was God's way of saying, I got you, if I could trust him through that. Nick's job, quitting his job seemed less important. It didn't seem before it was this holy cow, you want to quit your job. And then it was well, we did it before, it's okay. And then I remember, like, our team always jokes that, like, when you join Prüvit and earn some income, it starts to make you hate your fake job. That's what we call them. And so, like, I remember Nick coming home then once he restarted, and he went from running these millions of dollar projects to, like, literally checking light switches. And he would be like, I can't text, my boss keeps coming around the corner. And he wasn't used to that, you know? And so they sent him home to do his mileage logs one day, and I remember him walking out, and I'm like, I'm a planner. Like, if you don't know that by now, I plan everything. And so he comes home and he's like, I can't go back. I'm like, well, you're not quitting today. And he walked out the front door and he turned around and he was like, I'm a ticking time bomb. And I was like, not today, not today. But then December 29th.
Yeah, December 29th, I walked in and actually 2 weeks prior to December 29th, I put my 2-week notice in. And at the company I worked at, I mean, don't get me wrong, I was making $50 an hour as a master electrician. Like, I had a really, really good salary. And people just don't quit that company because that's what all the electricians make, $48 an hour. So people don't just quit that company. So whenever I put my 2 weeks notice in, they were like, what are you doing? I was like,
and I remember we called you to coach through it. I was working part-time at the job I had before law school because they let me work here. So I was making pennies, but it felt like I was doing something just to contribute. And we called to see if he should quit. And I was like, well, I'm not quitting yet. We need a little bit of steady income here, steady income. And you were like, well, I think you should just both quit. And actually, if you put that time, I'm like, I'm sorry. Say that again. I think I might have heard you wrong.
But yeah, we're coming up on the 1 year mark of being without a job and full-time Prüvit.
That's so cool. And why don't you walk us through how did that last day at your job go? It was a pretty eventful day. You kind of give us a little bit of the feelings around it. Now, I want to preface this by saying that, you know, Nick is somebody that since day one has been probably the most teachable and coachable person that I've ever worked with. I mean, incredible. And it wasn't just, you know, one random day that we hadn't been working together or we're like, hey, you know, Nick should maybe move into Prüvit full time. It was his work ethic. It was his consistency. They were team supported. At that point, they had an incredible group dynamic. Everything was in place. And what he was doing was actually retracting or taking away from his energy. It was taking away from his attitude. It was taking away from the things that he needed to be able to give to other people. And it was being drained from him each and every day. So a little bit premature in terms of the planning that we would have otherwise had, but it was the best decision, I think, personally. You know, I feel great about my decision of giving you the advice that I did, but I think you guys and what you've been able to do with your family and your kids and everything, it's been a pretty cool decision too, considering, you know, the kids
I'll never forget the month of December, like coming up to that day where I drove to Dillsburg to the office to put my notice in. I sat in the Sheetz parking lot, the gas station next door to my office, and I was on the phone with you, and then I was on the phone with Brian Underwood. So I didn't just make this decision on my own, because you're right. I did pull the trigger a little premature based off of my income at my job versus my income at Prüvit and that transition. But you're right. I would go to work, positive, supercharged, happy, fired up, listening to motivation stuff, audiobooks, and then I would come home from work just freaking miserable because I was hanging around just a bunch of negative guys at work, and it was just draining. And the hours I worked and my bosses, like there was just, they didn't care. Like I needed to get out, and it wasn't an easy decision, and I definitely didn't make it on my own. And looking back, yeah, it was all a good move, because you definitely had a different dynamic and Brian Underwood did. But Brian Underwood said that if Brian James is telling you that, I trust Brian James's decision. And you had said if Kelly supports the decision, whether you guys are living in a cardboard box 2 months from now, she had your back. Like it'll all work out. So there were days in the a lot of phone calls, a lot of text messages. It's not like we just woke up one day like let's quit my 6-figure job tomorrow. Like, I mean, it was definitely something we coached with you on.
Sure. And Kelly, real quick, you know, what has really changed that's giving you your personal power, or realized how powerful you and Nick truly are together, that's really allowed you to release that you know, that security or that lack of trust, or those, you know what I mean? Those things that were always holding you back. Because the shift that I've seen is now literally, I can tell everyone on here, I think that now Nick is actually more conservative in his decision making than Kelly. Like Kelly's now gone from being the super conservative one to now the, hey, something's happening, go do it. Hey, Nick says, hey, should we do this? Kelly's like, no, do 2 or do it twice or do whatever. Or, you know, it's tickets to a new event. Hey, if we want new people there, we're going to have to invest to make sure that they get there or whatever. Kelly, what made that shift for you? And do you guys realize now that by trusting and having that faith, that no matter what happens tomorrow, you know, if we woke up and God forbid something happened and we didn't have this available to us, do you know that you now have the personal power to do absolutely anything in life?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, you know, that time in September, so I was always like a person that, like my vice or whatever, like my, like fear has always gripped me. And it's not like fear of talking to people. It's just like fear of everything, like him getting hurt and or the kids getting hurt or some fear. I'm always anxious about something happening, and like then it happened, right? So like I manifested the wrong way, right? And I remember reaching out to you during that time, like it was, you know, thoughts of like, if I had to do this on my own, could I do it? Like, and even at that point, like we had success, but it was like, oh, you know. And I remember reaching out to you. And you were like, faith and fear can't exist in your body at the same time. Choose faith. And so, you know, like that one from Brian Underwood, like you know, things stick with me. And like when it hits me, it's like, okay, like we've got this. God's got us no matter what. And so now it's like, I mean, it's not, I'm not going to say like it's not sometimes, you know, if you're a financial person, like I run the bank, you know, I do the banking for us. So it's not, yeah, of course it's scary to do that, but if you can't invest in something that you believe in, what are you doing? You know? And so just having that faith and believe it, you know, like we can do it. That's what we talk about all the time. Even if this ends, we got it.
Yeah. It's pretty cool to watch too. Because I went from being the nagger to like, I come home from like running around to meetings, and Kelly's like, hey, there's an event in Dallas. I already bought you tickets. Your flight's booked. Your hotel's booked. I'm like, where'd this come from? I mean, the first couple of times that happened, I was like, really? It was kind of exciting to see and watch. Yeah.
So let's wrap up on this. Would both of you be awesome enough to share what's your favorite part? Like truly, like what's your favorite part about all this? What's your favorite part about Prüvit in this community? And what are maybe a few hacks, a few tips that you could give those that are tuning in that would, you know, no matter where they're at in their journey, maybe what's some tips or some insights that you could give them to really help them move themselves forward or maybe break through some resistance that they feel they have?
My favorite part about our company is the people. Like if you're not getting in here every day at noon, you're crazy, because you need something that's going to take you back to that event. Like at that event, I was all in. You know, I knew it. I felt it in my heart. I knew it. And you need something that's going to take you back to that feeling. And so, like, you guys bought me for my birthday a really cool, like, I am statement bracelet. And so when I'm feeling down, I'll put that on. Like, I'm powerful. And I know that. I need to remember that, you know? And so the cool thing for me is that this community is so supportive, and you can anchor back to that. That event's not like, oh, I spent so much money and it was a rah-rah session. That event, it's like power. It's power inside of you. And I think that's the best thing. The product, I mean, you forget about how awesome the product is sometimes because our company's so awesome, you know? But I mean, the product, helping my family, helping my kids, you know, like changing their perspective on the world. You know, they always say like the next generation, oh, they're this and that and this and that. We feel like we're changing that, right? Like our kids aren't going to grow up like being like, oh, they didn't do anything. Hayden wants to quit kindergarten after kindergarten and start her own salon and sell ketone. So that's exciting to hear that power in her. You know, she does I am statements, she does gratitude. And so that's been amazing for us to even learn ways to build them up so that they believe in themselves, you know? And so that's been amazing for us. And tidbits, like you have to break through that fear. I mean, coming from someone who it gripped for so long, when you break through that, it's so freeing. Like, get through it. Whatever you have to do, get through it.
Yeah, and it's totally a different dynamic for me. Like, I mean, similar, like, the people. Like, I can see some faces on the screen. Like, we have no connection through the business, but, like, they're some of my best friends. Like, I know I could call on them for anything, and they would be there in a heartbeat. Like, the value of what Prüvit invests in us at these events. And I just love the community. The community, I mean, Fortune 500 companies would pay millions and millions of dollars to have what we have, and it's just happened organically. So from a standpoint of the company, like I love the community. I love getting to events. There's only 2 events that I've missed, one because I was in the hospital and one because it was bad timing and I coached with you on that. And then we look back and we're like, that was a dumb decision, but hey, it happens. And I haven't missed an event since. I'm looking forward to meeting all the new faces, and this thing's grown so fast. But the biggest thing for me is just learning that I'm capable of so much more. I grew up in a family household where I was never good enough, or like just different things like that. And like, I'm a freaking monster. And just because I don't have some fancy college education doesn't mean that I can't go out there and smoke the smartest person in the room. I can tell you what, I can outwork just about anybody. But yeah, there's just been so much growth from a personal standpoint. And I like to joke around, if a guy with 2 brain injuries and a high school and no high school diploma, I dropped out actually. Brian and I were in the same class. He graduated, I didn't. Not trying to de-edify myself. It's just I went through some struggles my senior year and it just didn't happen. But it doesn't change who I am. I mean, if anything, it makes me work harder. But if I can do it, anybody can do it. And there's just so much. I mean, every day I'm becoming better, stronger, faster. And there's just so much. I mean, we could talk for another 2 hours.
Awesome. Well, thank you all so much. Let's show Nick and Kelly some love, whether it be in the comments or just giving them a wave or a thumbs up. Incredible. Thank you so much for taking the time to share your journey, just a piece of your journey with us. I know there's so much more that you guys could have said or could have offered, but we greatly appreciate it. You all are rock stars and amazing, and the community really, truly looks up to you.